Baylor did not lead their game against SMU for a single second. So why is that so concerning for the Mustangs?
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I'll tell you why that is here in just a second. Welcome to Locked On SMU, a Thursday edition here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen, and thanks for spending 30 minutes or so of your day with me. I'm Grayson Singleton, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Coming up on the show today, let's take a look at Missouri State and how they fared against Power 5 opponents and why they should be easy picking for the SMU offense. Also, there was a change that was needed. On defense, and this PFF grade is going to support that as well. So we'll talk about that when we close up shop later on in the show. But let me start with this. Baylor did not lead their game against SMU this past weekend for a single second. For not one single second of game time, Baylor led that game. And why is this so troubling to me? For one of two reasons. One has to do with finishing schematically, and one has to do with finishing physically. Let's tackle finishing schematically first. I don't think SMU, from a game plan perspective and from a coaching perspective, finished that game well. Not one bit. And the second point is going to build upon this. So stick with me here, even though I've kind of touched on this already, but not in depth. So you had a situation where on the second to last drive for SMU, they had a chance to run the clock out. Clearly they did not. Clearly they didn't do it well. You were running 6 yards a pop. It was 3rd down and 4, and you decide to drop back. If anything, it should be quick hitter, get it out. But you decided to drop Kevin Jennings back, and it didn't end up well. Okay, that's fine. Now, and by the way, that's going to overshadow a lot of the really good in terms of the game plan, in terms of the execution that went on for SMU in the first 3.5 quarters. But they did not finish the game well on offense. Defensively, they didn't finish the game well either. Schematically, we've talked about they didn't blitz. They didn't mix up coverages. And I'll tell you what else they did too. They just kind of sat back. And this is my problem with a lot of coaches in both college football and in the NFL. Get a lead and you see the other team is making a move and everybody gets tight. And the goal when everybody gets tight sort of shifts. Did you not sense that in the SMU game? The goal shifted from let's go all gas, no brakes. Let's put our foot on their neck and, have an attacker's mindset. And then around middle of the 4th quarter, the whole thing kind of moved to let's survive. Why? I don't understand why coaches have that happen to them. And I was listening to somebody say the same thing about the Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens game from this past Sunday night, that Baltimore kind of went into that same mindset. And another team, when they're behind, is going to keep coming. You have to match that attacker mentality. And I know it's just one game in the 2025 season, and I don't generally believe in a whole heck of a lot of carryover from years past, but this is something that has to be a one-off. You can't build a 15-point lead or carry a 15-point lead deep into the 4th quarter and then just all of a sudden, we're just going to go some semblance of a prevent shell defense and let Sawyer Robertson walk us down the field. Like he just walked down the field throwing the ball. It got too easy. The pressure wasn't going to be there because the front 7, particularly the front 4, was gassed because of all the snaps they played. So as a secondary and as a defensive coordinator, Scott Simons, you have to be aggressive with your coverages. You can't just let nickel and dime down the field. And Sawyer Robertson didn't make that many difficult throws. But schematically, they went into preservation mode. They did it on offense, and Baylor eventually was able to make the key stops. And they did it on defense, and Baylor was eventually just able to march down the field and score the requisite points to get the game into overtime before Colin Rogers kind of just imploded at that point in time. But that's how they failed to finish the game schematically. Now, physically, on the other hand, is a little bit, we can see that a little bit more. Front four was gassed. And the secondary got gassed too, because the tackling got worse. The tackling as we went through the game, go back, if you have time, go back and watch the tackling through the first 2 quarters, really through the first 3 as well. The tackling was on point. Baylor wasn't breaking a whole heck of a lot of tackles. They weren't moving SMU at the line of scrimmage. All of a sudden, that changed in the fourth quarter. The defensive line didn't get the same pressure. Baylor was able to pop some surprise runs. Receivers were getting more yards after the catch. So not only did SMU not finish the game well schematically and strategically, they did not finish it well physically. And I think that point builds upon the strategic point, is because, look, they were on the field too long. And I think some of that was schematic too. They never did anything to slow the tempo of Baylor. They never did anything to disrupt it. And offensively, with the way SMU was going down the field quickly too, there were more possessions in that game, which, remember I said, a high possession, high scoring game was not going to bode well for SMU. Not against a team like Baylor. It just wasn't going to happen, because Sawyer Robertson just doesn't make that many mistakes. So going forward in those ACC games, those are going to be 4-quarter games. You have to be able to hold up physically for 4 quarters against Miami and against Clemson and against Louisville. Hell, maybe even against Syracuse. I mean, their coach is over here making them run sprints after wins. You know they're going to be in shape. So you're going to have to be able to hold up physically, but also strategically from a coaching staff perspective as well. You can't build a lead. Let's fast forward this to Miami. Let's say we're back at home, Ford Field against Miami, Ford Stadium, and you have built a 15-point lead, 14-point, 13-point, whatever, 2-score lead against Miami. Carson Beck and those receivers are going to keep coming at you. You can't just back off and softly let them matriculate their way down the field. It's just not going to work. And offensively, even though obviously you're in your 4-minute offense and you want to run the clock down, you still have to remain creative, and you still have to continue to go to the things that have been working for you. If SMU is able to put up a performance where TJ Harden is rushing for 6 yards per carry against a Miami or something like that, if 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3 presents itself, play the numbers. Play the numbers. You just got to. That'll be your best chance for moving the chains, and that each time you move the chains is an additional, 2 minutes off the clock, give or take? Got to make sure you finish games better, both from a coaching, strategic standpoint, and physically. When you go up against the big dogs in the ACC, they're going to be 4-quarter games. They're going to lean on you. The offensive line is going to be big. The defensive line is going to be huge. And the team that can last the longest is going to be the team that wins. And the fact that Baylor won a game in which they literally trailed for 60-plus minutes, it's not troubling until it becomes a trend, but you don't want it to even start to look like it can become a trend. That's what that stat makes me think of. Coming up next, let's talk about the Missouri State game. The offense should be able to be on an A-plus trajectory and turn in an A-plus performance. Tell you why on the other side. Keep it here on Locked On SMU. Hey, it's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's go ahead and break this down. You watched the Bills and Ravens game on Sunday night. I just mentioned it. How about Josh Allen delivering in a big way, leading his team back from a 4th quarter 2-score deficit to eventually win the game in regulation? got the touchdown, and when it was time for him to shine, he didn't hesitate, and he was right on time for Buffalo. And just like Josh Allen delivered for the Bills, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period runs through November the 18th. All right, back here on Locked On SMU, your team every single day. My name is Grayson Singleton. Hey, go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter at Gray_Singleton2. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well so we can continue to grow this Locked On SMU community. All right, let's talk about the Missouri State game. And SMU is going to have a huge advantage offensively. Now, Missouri State has not played that many Power 4, Power 5 opponents in recent years, so we don't really have a huge sample size of this. But the Bears did play USC to open up their season. And Jaden Mayava was 15 of 18 for 295. That's 16.4 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns. As a team, SC ran the ball 30 times for a whopping 233 yards, 7.8 yards per carry. Look, I thought the offense was good. There's a lot in the PFF grades, because that's what I was reading and looking through before I recorded this episode. There's a lot in the PFF grades that aren't going to tell an accurate story. Like Kevin Jennings got a 49 grade from Pro Football Focus. I don't think a dude that completed 75% of his passes is a 49 grade. Now look, was every pass accurate? Hell no, it was not. The touchdown to Romello Brinson should have been picked off. We all know that. But he wasn't that bad. But this should be a good get-right game for the offense if there was any kinks or wrinkles that you think need to be ironed out. Because let's go back a couple of years with Missouri State to the last time they played a P4 opponent before they played USC to open up this season. It was against Kansas. Kansas won that game 48-17. And Jason Bean was still the quarterback, by the way, was 22 of 28 for 276 and 2 touchdowns. Devin Neal ran the ball 13 times for 94 yards and a touchdown as well. Look, Missouri State in the last few years, and they haven't played many P4 opponents in the last few years, played Arkansas tough, but still gave up 38 to an Arkansas team that just doesn't play offense very well. In the last few years, Missouri State has not fared well against P4 offenses. Now, look, does that mean SMU has to go out and score 73 points? No, it does not. But I think this should be a game where the offense handles its business to the point where you can get the starters out of there. It didn't really happen like we would have wanted it to against East Texas A&M, but this could be a game where you could do that. Especially, by the way, here's why this is even more important. Can we get Kevin Jennings some extra rest? Because that dude was hobbled at the end of the Baylor game. I would love to get Kevin Jennings up out of there and make sure that he is healthy and whole and ready to go. I would love to get Chris Johnson Jr. and TJ Harden some additional rest. That stuff matters at that position. So this should be a game where you complete 75% of your passes, minimum 70% of your passes. Maybe take a deep shot or two, but you don't want to put something crazy on tape. And it's another game where I'll say it like I did before the East Texas A&M game. And another game where the offensive line needs to reestablish the line of scrimmage and move some furniture. They need to move people. I mean, USC ran for 8 yards a carry against these dudes. You need to be moving people. And the offense should have a really good night. They don't have the corners to keep up with the receivers, even minus Jordan Hudson. They don't have the defensive front to be able to hang with SMU's defensive front. They just don't. By the way, offensive front. By the way, speaking of SMU's offensive front, PJ Williams would have turned in a pretty good grade from Pro Football Focus at 85.3 grade. I don't know if they call it percentage or what. But PJ Williams has been really good. He's been really good. But there is still value in this game. And I told you a couple of days ago when we did our first look at Missouri State, what did I say? Own your good and build confidence. Figure out what you need to continue to build confidence at and do it. I'm looking at Savion Byrd, the left tackle. Man, turn in an excellent game. Get you some good vibes going about yourself before you go to TCU. I'm looking at Kevin Jennings. Deliver the ball accurately. They say you got a 49. This Kevin Jennings grade. Let's look at this for a second, because I find this comical. Kevin Jennings turned in a 79 grade on Pro Football Focus when, in the game against Baylor, he completed 16 of 22 passes for 3 touchdowns and 295 yards. I don't know how you turn in a 49 grade on that kind of a performance. And no, he was not perfect. No, he was not always spectacular, but he did what he needed to do. And to me, that's cool. To me, that's all fine. But I'm looking for him to say, okay, what can I improve upon? TJ Harden, continue to solidify that RB1 spot. There is still value in games like these. But ultimately, if SMU's offense doesn't roll Missouri State, it could mean one of two things. Either that performance against Baylor was a fluke, or it was just kind of a game where people were beat up and you went to Missouri State, got a win, but we didn't feel great about it. But it's important that the offense rolls because we need people to feel good about SMU. Because again, subjective rankings is what gets you into the national championship picture. Ultimately is what that comes down to. So offense, handle your business, get out of there. Let's see some Ty Hawkins this week. Let's see Ty Hawkins. Let's see some extended run for Derek McFall and D'Amico Green, Carterius Brown, Isaiah Robertson. You would like to, but Isaiah Robertson is out indefinitely with some kind of an injury. So let's see if we can see more of those dudes in this game. East Texas A&M, first game of the season. Okay, no biggie. This game, I want to see more. I want to see the offense roll, get up out of there, and let's hand it off to some of the 2s and 3s. Coming up next, we'll close up shop. Change was needed, and Pro Football Focus did a good job with this grade. We'll tell you what it was on the other side on Locked On SMU. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I feel like betting on a day-to-day basis, whether it's player props, same-game parlays, or live betting as the game is going on. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, final segment here, Locked On SMU. Thank you for hanging with us on this Thursday. Okay, so Pro Football Focus gave the corners for SMU a coverage grade of 59. It just wasn't going to cut it. And we talked about the changes to the depth chart yesterday, but I did want to compound upon that point by saying this. Sometimes you just need a shakeup. And we'll see if this one is going to work. Because Speedy Nettles is no longer the corner that is opposite of Deuce Harmon. That's Jalen Davis Robinson now. Ahmad Moses has moved to nickel. He is alone. There's no or there. And then Isaiah Wacobia and Jaden Milner-Jones are your safeties. And I think there is a lot that can help the corners here. One is mental. I think a lot of people have had to have a mental reset to be real with yourself and to be able to really recognize, all right, we got to step up our level of play because this just isn't good enough. Reason number two, I think this is going to help everybody around, is because the coaches don't make this kind of move and this kind of seismic adjustment if they don't think the dudes are better where they're moving to. I'm going to say that again. If they don't think they can get the best of those guys at new positions, they're not going to move them. Jalen Milner-Jones, I think, is the best example of this. Because Jalen Milner-Jones was playing, I think, the majority of the nickel snaps. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but he was an or with Lamadrick Spencer, and they were rotating. We could see that by watching the game. And it just didn't look great. So making the switch from Milner-Jones from nickel to safety and then moving Ahmad Moses down into the nickel spot, you think they make that move if they don't think it makes at least one of them, probably Milner-Jones, better? So what I think here is that Jalen Davis Robertson looked fine once he was that corner opposite of Deuce Harmon instead of Speedy Nettles. And they think there's something in the way Milner-Jones plays, Milner-Jones attacks the game, and is built to where, like, okay, you can be a free safety. And Ahmad Moses is the definition of versatile because he can tackle, he's physical in the box, he is an excellent run-stopping safety. And he can still cover and be physical with wide receivers, which, remember, by the way, was something I said SMU needed to do against Baylor's smaller wide receivers, and they did none of that. I mean, especially in the slot, free releases all the way around. Especially just go back to the first fourth down attempt of the game for Baylor, where wide receiver coming out of the slot just runs right by Lamadrick Spencer, and Spencer has to grab him. So there is a chance where everybody is better because of this. And you had to make the move because 59 passer coverage grade, we didn't even need to see that. It looked awful. It just looked bad. Now, does Scott Simons have something to do with that? Probably, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you another angle here. If Scott Simons had something to do with that, if he thinks his players are in better positions now, you think he probably does something else. I feel like that equates in that regard. So I don't know what you're going to see with SMU. And another critical point here that I'll make is this. SMU has switched up so much on this defense. By the time you get to ACC play, the film is going to be limited. And the film is going to be limited and it's going to be murky because I think there's a lot you can do with Ahmad Moses being at that position. I think there's a lot of unpredictability that you can do. I think there is a lot of, oh, that's a big linebacker, or, oh, that's a really shifty linebacker. That's a really big safety. Like, you can't it makes it harder to categorize what exactly you're doing if you're an offensive team trying to study SMU's defense. I do think the potential is there for that. So I think SMU just got a little bit more unpredictable from an opposing team standpoint. And I do think they got better. I don't think you make all these moves just to say, oh, well, we got to try something, right? I mean, in one vein, you did have to try something. But I don't think they just made it willy-nilly without actually analyzing, wait, hold on. One guy might be better here. Another guy might be better here. Let's try it and see what happens. And I think they tried it and saw what happens, and then they released the depth chart saying, all right, here's what we're going to work with. But the coverage grade should be better now. The coverage grade should also be better because Zakai Barker's coming back. And he's going to be there making the calls and whatnot. You're not going to have two inexperienced guys in starting roles that are going to be starting for you. You're not going to have guys who aren't used to starting that are going to be thrust into that role once again. It's just not going to happen. And Alex Kilgore is on the mend, and he'll be back soon. But I think all around, we knew the corner room was going to be their weakness. They have addressed it. There was a grade there that said, you need to address this, and they did so. And I don't think they make the move if people aren't better in their new spots. I just don't. But we'll see. We shall see how that ends up working out. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Locked On SMU here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. And remember, be on the lookout tonight for college football kickoff, Locked On's and Fire TV's partnership. Your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. He leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson. Excuse me. Former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. So catch college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. One more show to go before we take on Missouri State. We'll talk to you tomorrow to close up the week here on Locked On SMU. Take it easy, everybody.